So we have some more news about EC3, his status with Impact Wrestling, and potentially EC3 staying with Ring of Honor at least until the end of the year. Now, it was reported last week that the former TNA World Heavyweight Champion EC3 is already gone from Impact Wrestling after re-debuting, returning to the promotion this past summer, returning to Impact at Slammiversary in July. Now, storylines involving EC3 finished up for him at the Bound for Glory pay-per-view a couple of weekends ago, and now, according to a report from the guys over there at Fightful using their Patreon service Fightful Select, EC3 has finished up his commitments with Impact, so it has been confirmed that EC3 has officially departed the promotion for the time being. Now, the report also went on to state that he is expected to remain with Ring of Honor for the remainder of the year, but it's unknown if he's under contract with Ring of Honor. It's unknown if he's going to stay into 2021. What is known at the moment is that he is expected to stay with ROH until the end of this year at least. Now, EC3 lost, I guess you could say, his match against Moose at Bound for Glory. It was a cinematic match billed as being in an undisclosed location. It certainly wasn't the regular pro wrestling match that we're used to seeing in Impact Wrestling. During the match, it was revealed that EC3's reasoning and the reason he'd gone after Moose in the first place was to teach Moose a lesson about, quote, controlling his own narrative. Yes, that's what all of this was about teaching a lesson to Moose. How underwhelming that was. Moose then said that's exactly what he'll do this past or last week on Impact Wrestling. And on the latest episode of Ring of Honor television, EC3 teamed with the Briscoes and lost to Shane Taylor Promotions. The 37-year-old is an 18-year pro in professional wrestling. Previously, of course, has been with WWE, was with NXT, has been with Impact Wrestling in the past. But it looks pretty official now that EC3 is done with Impact. And the more I think about it, I have to question this because I was so excited about seeing EC3 return to Impact earlier this year. There was a lot of hype, especially when he got released by WWE. There was a lot of hype of he's going to go back to Impact where he was a big star before, where he became a big star, where he'll be used properly, where he can be a main eventer, a world champion. And now that I look at this run that he has had with Impact, a very short one, the more I think about it, I have to question, what on earth did this run in Impact Wrestling achieve? And the answer is not a lot, not much. I think maybe it helped Moose. Maybe elevated Moose, set him up for his, it looks like the potential World Championship program against Rich Swann. But bringing in EC3, it must have cost a pretty penny to Impact. It must have cost a fair amount of money to get EC3 to come back to Impact Wrestling. And you do have to question, did EC3 really look good because of this run? I don't know if he really did. There was so much hype about EC3 when he returned to Impact, when he returned at the end of Slammiversary, when he made that appearance at the end of Slammiversary. I mentioned that was the closing moment of arguably the biggest show of the year. I know traditionally Bound for Glory, it's Impact's WrestleMania, it's their Starrcade, but this year I think Slammiversary was the biggest show. Because of the pandemic, because of the releases by WWE, because of the hype about who was going to be coming into the company, who was going to be returning, the Good Brothers, EC3, Heath, all of those names, the Motor City Machine Guns, Eric Young, and the cherry on top of that was EC3 returning. That was the final shot of that pay-per-view, and since then, it's just been a bit meh, really. It's not really been earth-shattering, and I don't think it's reflected the excitement that a lot of the Impact Wrestling fans had. I mean, he wasn't working matches in the Impact Zone. He didn't make many appearances in the Impact Zone. He made like 2. It was just vignettes and just promos. And I stress again, what did that do for EC3? Not a lot. It didn't do a lot. If anything, I think it's almost worked against him now because there isn't that big amount of anticipation that was previously there when EC3 returned to Impact. And I mentioned this when I've been discussing Bound for Glory and when I've been discussing EC3 in the last few weeks. Specifically when I was talking about the EC3 match with Moose, when I was hyping it up, when I was reviewing it on the watch-along, the storyline, I just found the booking of EC3 very strange, and I still find it very strange now. I found it odd. You know, EC3 returning to Impact Wrestling at Slammiversary was the ending of the show. It was arguably the highlight of the show. Everyone was very, very excited. EC3's back. He's going to be used properly. He's going to be a world champion. And alongside, as I mentioned, the signings of the Good Brothers, of Heath, it was one of the bigger coups by Impact Wrestling. It was like, this is a big deal. And then what did we see? We saw him attack Moose after Slammiversary, and I think people were thinking, right, here we go. EC3 is back. It's a different character, but we're going to see a lot of EC3 on Impact TV. And while we didn't see him in the Impact Zone. The only other time we saw him in the Impact Zone is when he stole the TNA World Heavyweight Championship at Impact Emergence. And that was it, really. It was just vignettes. It was just promos with Moose, hyping the match for Bound for Glory, hyping the storyline with Moose going into Bound for Glory. And it was just very, very strange. And to be honest, lackluster. It was lackluster. And I've spoken about the cinematic match in the undisclosed location at Bound for Glory. And I didn't like it. I felt like they were trying to be too clever in their storytelling. I felt that they were trying to be too layered, too subtle, too arty. This actually means this actually represents that. And, sometimes that's great. We love callbacks, we love subtlety sometimes in pro wrestling. But it just felt like it was way overboard. Just tell the simple, enjoyable story. Or better yet, I would have just preferred have the match inside the Impact Zone. Have EC3 versus Moose inside the ring at Bound for Glory. To me, that would have been much more preferable to this cinematic, weird smoke show that we saw. And again, I think that also factors into the disappointment here for this EC3 run in Impact, because that match at Bound for Glory was technically the only match he worked in this return to Impact. Was that even a match? I don't think it was. I don't consider that to be a match in the same way that I don't consider the Firefly Funhouse match at WrestleMania to be a match. And even if it was a match, and they're calling it a match, EC3 lost. EC3 lost, so what was really achieved in this short run with EC3 and Impact in 2020? Not a lot for him. If it was meant to build him up, and if it was meant to make him feel like a bigger star, I don't think it achieved that. And, for Impact, I think it seemed to me to be a vehicle to get Moose over, get Moose ready for a possible World Championship run or feud with Rich Swann at least. And all of it, just lots of different aspects of this I just found odd. I found it odd that this new version of EC3, this returning of the prodigal son to the company that made him famous, he only makes 2 appearances inside the Impact Zone. He doesn't work a single match inside of an Impact ring. It's just vignettes and it's just promos. And I suppose maybe the disappointment is maybe on ourselves, because EC3 was saying this whole time during this run of Impact, he said, I'm not signed, I haven't returned, I'm not with the company. And he wasn't lying. He wasn't lying. I think we almost got caught in the shoot of it. And we thought it was a work. And I speculated this a couple of times here on the channel now. You can go back and see it. To me, it looks like, and we were right, that EC3 signed a very short-term deal with Impact, limited appearances. And that deal factored in only a couple of in-person dates as well. The rest of it was promos, and he'd obviously signed on for one match, which was at Bound for Glory with Moose, an appearance, or a match, whatever you want to call it. And from that point of view, look, I get it from EC3. I understand the logic, and I understand the desire from EC3 to have short-term deals with promotions, not to be tied down to one promotion. Quite literally, I know it's a storyline, but quite literally, he wants to be in control of his own narrative. He wants to pick his spots, pick his dates. That makes total sense to me. But I think we've seen it a few times now in 2020, and we've seen it over the years when it comes to wrestlers. There are wrestlers that they want to keep their options open. They don't want to be signed just to one company. They don't want to be tied down. But it almost gets to the flip side of things. It almost gets to the point where they don't really sign with anyone full time, and their hype kind of just fades away because they don't end up signing anywhere. And they don't sign anywhere because each company's like, well, we want you full time. It's a bit like the Jeff Cobb situation with AEW. There was so much hype about Jeff Cobb when he was going to sign with AEW, but then he was like, well, I still want to do my New Japan dates, and I still want to work for Ring of Honor, and he still does that stuff, but I don't think the hype is there that was there previously. I think as a fan, you do want to see a wrestler commit to a promotion, at least for a year or so. And when they bounce around from indie to indie, and then maybe a couple of shots for Ring of Honor, and then a couple of shots for Impact, eventually I think the hype does wear off. And I do think, as a fan, you want to see them commit to a company, whether it is WWE, AEW, Impact, New Japan, Ring of Honor, or wherever. And now looking at EC3's run in Impact, I think it looks to me that Impact, they were doing the TNA World Heavyweight Championship storyline, right? So they wanted to bring back a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion to feud with Moose, who currently holds that championship, add some credibility to the storyline, a bit of nostalgia. It worked for EC3 because he wanted to create some buzz after his WWE release, which he did by coming back to Impact. It fits in with the whole control your narrative storyline by erasing, confronting his past in TNA, addressing his time as TNA World Heavyweight Champion, making this new character. But during this run with Impact, he debuted with Ring of Honor, and he's already worked a match inside of a Ring of Honor ring on ROH TV, something he didn't do during his entire time of Impact, a regular wrestling match. He returned to Impact in July, had this run that ran all the way through October, and he still didn't do that. He's already done that in 2 appearances with ROH that he didn't do in Impact. So to me, I mean, you could look at the reality here that it suggests that his priority maybe was this ROH run the entire time. Maybe EC3 already had an agreement with Ring of Honor, but at the time, Ring of Honor, they weren't running shows or tapings due to the pandemic. Eventually, they did, and eventually plans came in place for ROH to start doing tapings, which they did a few months ago. But maybe Impact came in and said to EC3, you know what, do you want to come back? Do you want to come and do some shots for us at Impact? And then EC3 says, well, I'm already committed to ROH. I'm going to do their tapings whenever they're back. And Impact says, well, you know what? While they're not doing tapings, in the interim, you can work a few dates for us, do a Bound for Glory spot, and then you can work for Ring of Honor. And maybe you don't work a proper match to ensure that you don't get hurt, so it doesn't affect that Ring of Honor run. That's potentially what it looks like there to me. I'm just speculating there. I don't know if that's the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. So when it comes to EC3 now, it looks like he's going to be with Ring of Honor until the end of the year at least. I think EC3 will work Ring of Honor's Final Battle event in December. If they do that, it's traditionally ROH's biggest show of the year. I think EC3 is also trying to do a Cody Rhodes situation where he has short-term deals with various promotions and kind of works everywhere. That's kind of the blueprint for what stars like to do when they leave WWE now, or certain stars do. It's go to Impact, go to Ring of Honor, maybe do a New Japan shot in America. Eventually, I think he'll go to AEW. I think, and I've stated before, that I think the end game and the long-term goal for EC3 is to end up in AEW. I think that he just wants to come into AEW in a featured spot. I think he wanted to rebuild his reputation. I think he wanted to build up his name once again with short-term runs in Impact and Ring of Honor, which is what he's doing now. Because let's be honest, that WWE run did damage. Everyone knows the talent that EC3 is. But the hype around him has sort of diminished because of that terrible WWE run, and he wants to build himself back up. Now, obviously, Moose looks to be feuding with Rich Swann now, so perhaps, we're saying that he's finished his commitments with Impact doesn't mean he can't come back in the future. Perhaps EC3 could return to confront Moose in person, in January maybe. The report by Fightful stated that EC3 will be with Ring of Honor until the end of the year, and is done with Impact for now, the important thing there being for now. So it doesn't rule out that EC3 could come back to Impact in a more concrete capacity in 2021, potentially at the Hard to Kill pay-per-view, but we'll have to wait and see. As I mentioned, EC3, his run in Impact Wrestling, I won't lie, if it is the final run for EC3 in Impact, I would be disappointed. I would have liked to have seen more. I would have liked to have seen EC3 have a few more matches in ring, in the Impact Zone, face some of the faces he hasn't faced before in Impact, but that didn't happen. And to return to Impact for 4 months, only make 2 appearances inside the Impact Zone, just do promos, have a cinematic match at Bound for Glory, to be honest, it sucks a little bit if I'm honest. But you never know, EC3 could still return to Impact in the future, we'll have to wait and see. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on EC3 being done with Impact Wrestling, staying with Ring of Honor until the end of the year? Where do you think he could go next? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys and chatting about Impact Wrestling here in the comments. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Get up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.